Nearly 100,000 people die every year in hospitals from infections they develop after they're admitted. But even though they do intense infection control in the hospital, new strains of bacteria keep on popping up seemingly out of nowhere, sickening people in hospitals worldwide.
Well, joining us on the KOGO News Live Line, an expert on the spread of infectious diseases and the founder of Wello, the first hands-free self-service temperature screening device, Rik Heller. Good morning, Rik.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, kind of surprisingly, where is this bacteria coming from?
Well, no surprise. It's coming from patients who come into for a cure. It's coming from the workers that are, dealing with these patients every day. And then, quite honestly, visitors are bringing all sorts of things in. And rarely, but sadly, incurable infections.
So how do you prevent, it's just people, so how do you prevent this?
Well, if I could tell you the biggest problem, and it's being in favor of germs, that bacteria are actually our friends by and large, and there's 10 times more bacteria in our bodies than there are human cells that make us up. And then viruses are about 100 or more times, and plus viruses kill bacteria. So, we're dealing with this mixed situation. But hospitals are improving processes to avoid these HAIs. They used to call them nosocomial infections. And one of the interesting things is hospitals, you may have noticed, are trying to get rid of us as quickly as possible. And that's kind of against their profit model. But it's also because the longer you're in there, the more likely you are to, not likely, but the possibility of being exposed is likely. And then you'll see physicians, they're not throwing antibiotics at us just on a phone call or whatever. They're taking more care in diagnosing and determining whether that antibiotic will help. Because if it doesn't help, and even if it does, bacteria that survive that antibiotic regimen are going to be maybe incurable and certainly intractable when it goes to the next person.
Well, I guess the surprising thing that I found is that researchers found that the unexpected source of bacteria was in the patients themselves from catheters.
Yeah, well, so these catheterization is getting limited, and I think maybe I don't know the exact rule, but we were catheterized anytime we went into the hospital. It would seem like, at least in my experience. And yes, obviously, catheters are going to a place that is not exposed to the air, environment, or whatever. And yes, they're bringing them in, but they're using them less and more purposefully. So we also have a situation with COVID and this awful lockdown situation that we had 2 years ago. And what we saw is a drop in most hospital-acquired infections because guests could not even come in to visit patients. So that's how we know that guests are bringing it in. Our hospitals are doing, hospitals that use our kind of product are doing very well to keep those people out. And it's not just fever as defined by, 100.4, 99.5. It's actually elevated temperature. And we all have experienced elevated temperature and thought, well, it's not so much a serious situation, but it is to the public. So we need to stay out of hospitals if we suspect or have any kind of elevated temperature.
All right, Rik Heller joining us here on the KOGO News Live Line. Thank you so much.
Thank you.